Hello and welcome to the Great Big Movie Show. I'm your host, Eric, and this time we watched Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I'm joined tonight by Bart Tooker and Joe Karpowicz to talk about the movie. Guys, how are you?
Wonderful.
Good. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a very long time since I've seen you, especially, Joe.
It's been a while.
It has.
Love the beard.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
So what did you guys think of the movie?
wow, I tell you, it's good. I like the early Star Trek stuff. I'm really a vintage Star Trek fan. I love the early show, Shatner. This one is fantastic. The almost prehistoric special effects. Eat it up. I just love the whole show.
Great.
Well, to be honest with you, Eric, I was never still not a big Star Trek fan at all. And Star Trek, the original show, was on, when I was in high school, and my dad loved it, and I could take it or leave it. But I really liked this movie, and there was a lot of reasons for that. We can get into that as the show goes on. But I was very, very surprised. I went into it thinking, it's a Star Trek movie. Who cares? But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I have to agree. Well, obviously, I agree with both of you. I think it's a good movie. I'm a little more with Joe, though. I grew up watching Star Trek, not in the same way that you guys did, or would have been able to. I'm trying to say I'm younger than you do.
That's what I thought you were trying to say.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the original show. You can't beat William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy and that whole group of guys. I like the newer ones too, but you can't beat that. I suppose we should mention what the plot is up front for the people watching at home. So this is the one where Kirk and crew are retired, and they take a group of trainees out on the Enterprise to go on a training exercise, but they get sidetracked when an old villain from the TV show, Khan, a genetically engineered kind of Superman, shows up. He's taken over another starship and wants to shoot a torpedo that's going to destroy a whole planet. So they have to go out and stop him. But now, Joe, you mentioned liking the original Star Trek, but I feel like you hadn't seen this movie before.
You know, this one slipped through my. I hadn't. It went out and I hadn't watched it, so it was my first viewing of it. And again, with me being a real hardcore liking the original TV series, I kind of just thought, wow, they'll just never really make a movie to what I'm going to appreciate.
Sure.
And I think too, as I age slow and gracefully, I'm being more open-minded to watching some of the other type stuff. But like I say, I just really like the vintage stuff, and in doing some of the TV stuff that I do in the behind-the-scenes stuff, like I know that they put a sparkler on a piece of cord and pulled it across the set, and then added stuff into the background, and it's like, oh, that's how they got that special effect.
Well, sure, and certainly the star fields on the show aren't anything more than like this black curtain that we have behind us here, but just kind of bedazzled with some rhinestones and stuff to make it look like the stars in space and stuff.
Yep.
But we've managed to mention a couple of times the idea of growing old here, and that's really what this movie's about.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and that's a big part of why I wanted to show it to you guys, was to talk about. We already mentioned what the plot is for the movie here tonight, but it's a movie that's not so much about having to stop Khan than it is about the characters growing old.
And I think that's one of the reasons that I liked it the most. Obviously, I'm growing a little old too, and I'm told people I'm getting a little sentimental in my old age, and looking at things differently than I used to look at things, and a lot of the, I don't know if you'd want to call it a subplot of this movie about them aging and getting old and not necessarily being happy with who they are at that particular point in time or what they're doing at that particular point in time. That really hit home with me.
Yeah. Well, and that's especially true of Captain Kirk, right? I mean,
right, exactly.
This is a guy who for years we'd enjoyed watching on the TV show, just running around, hopping galaxies and making out with every green alien woman that came within 20 feet, right? But now he has a desk job, and he's just a teacher, and he doesn't really like it. His life kind of sucks.
Yeah, and it was kind of good that in this movie it shows him getting revitalized, getting back out in the ship and doing things, and once again good over evil, you know. So
Well, and what an evil it is.
yeah,
You know, let's talk a little bit about Khan. You know, he's the bad guy in this movie, played by Ricardo Montalban from Fantasy Island. And just what a delightful character and performance.
He played it very well.
Yeah.
And even though Khan was the villain, you kind of understood, you know, in the way he played the character and the way the character came out, you kind of understood and felt a little sorry for him and felt like you could feel what he was actually thinking and kind of walking in his shoes. And that's another reason that I like the movie, because, you know, even though there was a villain and the good guys, you really understood both sides of that. Yeah. And they were very good at making the viewer aware of that.
Well, and where is Khan coming from in this one? What is his motivation?
Well, he wants to get back at Captain Kirk from being abandoned. He was let go, if you will. And, you know,
he was stranded on a planetoid.
Nobody came back for him.
Right, and his wife died, and
right.
other members of his crew died. And now he wants to kill Jim Kirk for revenge.
Exactly.
Yeah, many hours of revenge have been waiting and getting plotted in Khan's mind. So when Kirk comes back, there's just like it's his birthday. He's like, haha, got you. You know. And you know, I don't know if it's just the way this was shot or the way I perceived it. But it's almost like these actors worked harder on their character development because they didn't have so many special effects and so many things happening. And I think they really portrayed a good character, each one of them.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, this movie does have a place in cinema history as being the first movie to have computer-generated special effects in it. You know, this is still a time when they were shooting all of the shots of the Enterprise are a big model, you know, but there's a sequence where they have to explain this special missile. They have the Genesis torpedo that can kind of transform a whole planet from a dead planet like the moon into something alive like the Earth, and so they have a whole computer simulation that they used CGI for, but the rest of it was, you know, effects that they'd been using for 70 years at that point, you know. And you're right, it's not it's not like the Star Trek movie that was out 2 years ago. This is a much more, you know, calmed down special effects wise movie, and I think you're right that it really relies a lot more on the characters, and so it ends up being a very kind of a talky movie. There's a lot more performance and nuance driving the plot than explosions and special effects. It's definitely, it is very much about the characters and how they interact with each other, and certainly the sort of Khan-Kirk relationship is a big one, you know, but I think you know, just as big, if not bigger, is the relationship between Kirk and Spock.
Yes.
I was just going to mention that, you know, that's probably just one of the hugest things that ever happened in the whole Star Trek phenomenon was that Spock died here, you know, and which created, of course, another movie opportunity later. Sure. But, you know, it was just, again, for a diehard old-timer, it was just like, oh, my God, no, you know, what to do now? So. Yeah.
Well, and it's just, what a gut-wrenching scene that is at the... Right as the hero, you know, everything seems like they've won, you know, we find out that Spock had to sacrifice his life to get the ship out of danger, right? Exposes himself to like radiation poisoning.
Yeah. But the thing about it is, Spock as a Vulcan's not supposed to have human emotion. Certainly understood it and talked about it in several places, not only in this movie but other shows, but he understood it, and he really did have it himself, even though he said that he didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the things that always strikes me about this movie and, you know, the Kirk-Spock relationship and the Kirk-Khan relationship is Kirk and Khan never meet face-to-face in the movie. They always have to talk either over like the communicators or over the little video screen on the bridge, but they never are in the same room together. And when Spock dies, even though he's sacrificed himself to save the ship, he lingers on long enough for Kirk to get down to the engine room and for them to have a face-to-face as Spock is dying, you know, and it's a heck of a scene. You know.
It was a wonderful scene, and what struck me about that scene, and I thought of it when I initially saw it, and I've thought about it since, is that even in death, there is an understanding of life going on at the same time. And even though you feel bad that Spock died and Captain Kirk feels bad about that and whatever have you, it seemed to me that there was an understanding of life and an understanding of what has happened and an understanding of maturity at that particular point in time. That's actually part of life. That was very interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the movie bears that out too, like just in the way that you're saying, but also that's kind of the end of Kirk's personal journey in the movie, right? Like when we meet him, it's actually his birthday, and he could not be more depressed about it being his birthday. Exactly. And then he goes through all of this stuff that happens, and his best friend dies in front of him, saving his life. And do you guys remember somebody asks Captain Kirk at the very end of the movie on the bridge, how are you feeling? Do you remember what he says?
I don't.
To be honest with you, I don't.
Fair enough. He says, "I feel young."
Yeah.
You know, you're absolutely right, Bart. It kind of all comes full circle, and it's.
He understood.
Yeah. It's death, and death is a part of life.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And I just really, like I said, I've never been a big Star Trek fan, and I go, well, we'll go watch it. But I really, really liked it. Yeah,
there's certainly a reason why people consider this the best of those movies. So
absolutely.
And I think what made it the best too, just to step back one step, it's the one thing that the Star Trek TV show and many things happen. It was always good triumphing over evil, where this was good over evil, but also significant loss to get good.
Yeah.
So it really kind of added a twist at the end that hadn't been utilized yet. So it really kind of...
Well, it blurs those lines. Like Bart said earlier, I mean, Khan is a sympathetic villain. You know, we don't want him to do what he's going to do. You know, you don't want him to kill Kirk and who knows how many more people, but you kind of understand where he's coming from.
Right.
You know, and in the same way, yeah, there's a hell of a price that has to be paid in the end of the movie to win. So...
But it's interesting that at the beginning of the movie, Captain Kirk was depressed. He wasn't happy about his birthday. Goes through all these things, goes through the villain thing, but he had an awakening, you know, and that just really stuck with me, and it still sticks with me. I just think that was just terrific. I'd like to watch it again, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, and you know, a movie can hardly do better than that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. We're running out of time, so thank you guys so much for coming out and joining me tonight for talking about the movie.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
You know, I thank you for letting us old folks come in and park our walkers at the door, so me and Bart will be leaving now.
Fair enough. I want to thank everybody at home for watching. We'll be back next time with an all-new great big movie show. In the meantime, I also want to thank our wonderful crew, who, as always, has been made up of people taking our free monthly How to Make a TV Show class. If you'd like to sign up for this or any of our other free classes, please call or email 763-231-2803 or eric@northmetrotv.com. We'll see you next time on the Great Big Movie Show.